How are you guys? Kamusta kayo? Oh, kamusta ka, Harold? Sige tayo lang mag-usap. Grabe. How about, guys, kayo? Yung iba, musta kayo? Okay lang ba kayo? Okay lang kayo? Sige. Sana all okay. De, joke lang. Anyway. So, uh, ano to? Siguro this will be, last two topics na discuss natin for this subject. Then, after this, I will give your sobrang cute na project lang naman. Hindi naman siya, super, super mahirap na project. Pero masaya siya. Yun lang, ano ko, mag-guarantee ko. Anyway, so, last time, na-discuss na natin yung about do sa interaction. Like, ano yung mga different, parts ng isang WIMP system, kung ano yung significance ng pagkakaroon ng isang window, ng isang icon, ng, what they call this, M. What's M again? Mice or mouse, of course, and then P are the pointers na ginagamit natin when we are creating our systems. So, with that, creating systems naman are not just about, you know, aesthetics. Well, that's the main point of, well, yun naman yung pinaka-point naman talaga ng paggagawa natin ng system is for the users to be comfortable in using the program. Pag yung ergonomics and although yung visual, yung ergonomics, how easy na nade-design yung system na ginagawa nyo. So, we have these different components. So, today we'll be discussing about paradigms. So, these are the theories that are involved when we are actually creating our own designs or UI when we are creating the UI of our system. So forgive this slide. It's not the best UI ever because hindi ko na siya na-edit and kasi one hand pa rin ako nag-work. Anyway, dami ko na sinabi. Let's proceed. So why are we going to study paradigms? So the concerns regarding this concept is how can an interactive system be developed to ensure its usability? Not just because you're designing an interactive system and it is really good in the eyes, okay na yon. So you have to take note of its usability. Are your target audience will be able to use this in the future or when you're going to deploy it? Does it what do you call this? Nagagawa ba niya yung mga dapat niyang gawin? Hindi ba siya nakakairita gamitin? Mga ganong bagay. Next is, how can the usability of interactive system be demonstrated or measured? So today we'll be talking about the history on how the interactive system started, provides the paradigm for usable designs. So, what are paradigms actually? Kanina ko ba binabanggit, pero like, ano nga ba tong paradigm na tinatawag natin? So, these are the theoretical frameworks or scientific worldviews like Aristotelian, Newtonian, etc. And there are also paradigms, what we call in physics. So, understanding HCI history is largely about understanding a series of paradigm shifts. So, hindi naman lahat na nakalista dito now are necessarily paradigm shifts, but there are actually shifts on how people uses or integrates different systems as time went by. So as technology arises, parang mas nagiging high-tech yung mga bagay-bagay, of course, the system that needs to be developed are also being upgraded or at the same time sumasabay sila sa evolution ng shift ng technology natin. So what I'm saying is if you have created a system that is written in COBOL or in QBasic, Turbo C, like the year 2006 or maybe 1995, most probably we cannot use it right now. The systems na, yung mga system na sad to say, ginagamit sa gobyerno ay napag-iwanan na rin ng panahon. So, parang people were like screaming na please, like upgrade your systems. What the hell are you still doing with those dinosaur systems na hindi naman na sila talaga nakaka-cope up with the things that are happening or the advancement of technology right now. Ayan. So, sabi ko nga, as a new computing technology arrived, creating a new perception of the human-computer relationship, so we can trace some of these shifts in the history of interactive technologies. So the first way on how to process things, or the initial paradigm, where it all started, una talaga siya is batch processing. So what happens in batch processing is, for example, in the whole day, that na parang nagtrabaho yung isang empleyado or isang yung isang clerk or isang empleyado dun sa system, at the end of the day, doon lang siya mag-upload sa database or like doon pa lang siya magsisave ng mga gawa niya. So the saving is not real time. So parang ang logic niyan, kung i-apply natin siya ngayon, like nag-share ka ng memes sa Facebook, nag-upload ka ng photo, nag-upload ka ng story mo, ng video, nag-post ka ng status mo, and then at the end of the day, kung kailan nakaschedule yung processing, doon lang sila ma-upload lahat. Diba? In a way, sobrang hassle nun. So ganun yung technology before. So, kaya ayun. Hindi na siya talaga advisable to use today. Okay, so next is we have, si batch processing and impersonal computing. So next is what we call time sharing. Shucks and jeje pala na ito. Anyway, so time sharing, guys, ito naman yung it means that a single computer could support multiple users. So the introduction of time sharing meant the end of the batch processing in which complete jobs processed individually. So ito na yung naka-wire na yung mga computers sa tinatawag nating servers, kaya pwede nang sabay-sabay na save yung multiple users into the server. But then again, sa panahong ito noon, the servers are still hardware, so it's still bulk, and the memory is not that big. So, ayun. Yeah. At saka yung pagsasave nila, since they are time sharing, parang halimbawa mauna ako magsasave, of course, maunang darating yung system ko, ay parang pipila sila. Ayun. So, halimbawa sabay-sabay tayo nag-save, pero like number 1 yung PC ko, number 2 yung PC mo, number 3 yung PC ni isa, ganun pa rin yung order ng pagpasok niya doon sa ating server. It's good in a way kasi you don't have to get like different files and then integrate it one by one sa isang server, pero it still has its flaws. Okay, guys, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions or am I fast? So the next thing is we have networking. And so as you all know, networking provides the internet, ganyan, and it connected all of our PCs together. And so hindi naman na siya masyadong so self-explanatory naman na pag sinabi natin networking. Hindi ito yung front row level networking, ha? Masaya sila. So when you say networking, it provides community computing. So next is we have graphical displays. This is when like the human interaction became easier with the people kasi nga nagkaroon na ng graphical displays yung ating mga computers. Therefore, we can more understand what is happening here. Ayan. So, ayan. So, as you can see, mas madali na siya nagagamit when graphical displays are integrated. So you have already a direct manipulation with the data that you're actually using. So next is we also have the integration of the microprocessors. This is more of the personal computings having microprocessors. So when technology progresses, it is more difficult to distinguish between what constitutes a personal computer or a workstation and what constitutes a mainframe. So some examples of personal computing applications are Logo and NLS. So basically, microprocessors, these are also your cell phones, ganyan, because you can actually work using your phones right now. And of course, other uh, devices that actually have a computer quote unquote inside. So you have your iPads, your what else? Yung mga smart TVs natin, mga smart appliances natin, they also have their own computers inside already. And of course, we have the World Wide Web. So this is to remind you guys that the World Wide Web, this is not actually the same with the internet. Basta yung internet kasi, these are just a connection of the different computers, while the World Wide Web is the graphic top layer, which is popular for exchanging information in the HTML markup notation. So, ayun. So, yung, kumbaga yung internet kasi, sila lang, yun lang yung mean, like yun yung kable, quote and quote again, to connect us. But then the World Wide Web is actually where the information came from. So, as we are actually using the World Wide Web now to communicate here in our class. So, ayon. Basically, having the World Wide Web, you're having the access for the global information. And then, of course, we have the ubiquitous computing. The meaning, if you are aware of what ubiquitous means, so ubiquitous is all present, parang andyan lang siya lagi, ganyan, like your God. Oh, sorry. Like God? Ayun. Hindi naman siguro mababash today. Okay, so, ayun, we being, like, omnipresent, all that omnipresent, ganyan. So, this is a symbiosis of physical and electronic worlds in the service of everyday activities. Ayan. So, having ubiquitous computing, basically, you can just open your phones and access the internet and actually get the information that you need. If you need to check something, if it is true, ganyan, mga ganyang bagay, you can just simply bring out your phones or anything that has a computer inside. So, basically, sobrang dali na natin ma-access yung mga information na kailangan natin. And at the same time, as developers, or, kayo, in the future, so as developers kasi, we can actually take advantage of these things being na sobrang ubiquitous nga ng internet and different microprocessors, microcomputers. We can actually create systems that can take advantage of these things. Okay. So, yeah, as I was saying, yung time sharing, ito yung kanyang, ano ito? Timeline. So, it is actually during the 1940s and 1950s, which is a really long time ago. And si JCR Lecture at ARPA, siya yung nag-propose naka-discover rather ng time sharing that's na umahon sa atin sa kahirapan ng batch processing. Okay. There are also like video display units. Gulo ng slide na to. Sorry. Okay, so of course, having video display units, they're more suitable medium than paper. And then during the 1962, they have actually developed Sketchpad. So this is a simulation language for visual models. So this demonstrated that computers can be used to create visual models of abstractions. So 1962, dahil kay Sketchpad na gawa ng Sutherland, nagkaroon tayo ng UI that we are actually using today. So, the first application of display screens were developed during the military applications. So, ayun. As it said here, one person's contribution could drastically change the history of computing. Just because of the development of the sketchpad, see where we are today. Okay. We also have what we call, programming toolkits. So the idea of building components of a computer system that will allow you to rebuild a more complex system is called bootstrapping and has been used to a great extent in all of computing. So when we say these things like okay, so ito kasing programming toolkits, as separate first years pa lang kayo, you are experiencing programming 1 and programming 2. You have experienced programming 1 rather and experiencing programming 2 na hard-coded lahat. Like, everything was being typed. May mga shortcut keys naman sa Eclipse, but that doesn't really help it. Or, sige, maybe it helps sometimes. Pero, the point is, because of these toolkits, we can actually use this to their advantage to develop the systems that we need. So we have what we call bootstrapping, as I said a while ago, and there are lots of frameworks that you can actually use to develop systems, to develop softwares, even to develop websites. Syempre, you have this different softwares to create your mock-ups for your websites, as I introduced XD last time. We also have Figma. We also have, of course, kung tamad na tamad ka na sa buhay, you can also use Wix, WordPress, and all those other web builders out there. Of course, they came with a price kung gusto mong tamad, pero mayaman ka naman, go pay for it. Anyway. So, ayun. So, yeah. The right programming toolkit provides building blocks to producing complex interactive systems. When you get to third year and I will be your teacher again, I don't know if I'm still at SMU by that time, pero sige, and hopefully face-to-face na rin. We will be discussing lots of frameworks for you to help make your lives easier, basically. So, pero kailangan nyo pa rin mag-aral ng Prog 1 saka Prog 2, ha? Ano ba? Okay, next. We have personal computing. This is, ayun, started with the logo language for simple programming, graphics programming by children. So they created actually a programming language that is graphical, quote unquote, for kids to learn how to create. A system that is more powerful. A system is more powerful as it becomes easier to use. The future of computing in small, powerful machines dedicated to the individual. And then, of course, we have what we call our Windows system and the WIMP interface. So, yeah, the humans are capable of doing multiple tasks at the same time and therefore frequently change their train of thoughts. Ayan. So the computer or the personal computer needs to be just as flexible in order to be an effective dialogue partner. So the modern PC as we have to date, and by using Windows, it can present messages to the user in the context of their task. So the user is able to distinguish the message from different tasks. So, ayan, salamat sa ating Windows and sa WIMP system, we can actually multitask inside our own computers. Even in your phones, you can just browse Facebook, and then when you get bored, you open Instagram, and when you get bored again, you open Twitter, and you get bored again, you go to TikTok, and then hindi mo marirealize at nung oras ka na pala sa TikTok, diba? Sobrang nakaka-drain ng oras yung TikTok talaga. Anyway, so 1981, so Xerox Stark first commercial windowing system. And of course, you have your Windows icons, menu, and pointers. They are now the familiar interaction mechanisms. Okay, where's my mouse? Okay, metaphors. So metaphor is not just a figure of speech. These are used quite successful to teach new concept in terms of one which are already understood. So this also works with computers. So many of the tasks of computers are presented as metaphors of tasks in an office environment. So, however, the metaphor is inadequate for promoting a full understanding of the computer. So, furthermore, metaphors portray a cultural bias. Therefore, it is difficult to create a metaphor that is internationally understood. So, yeah, you were going to relate computing with other real-world activities. So, yeah, alam naman natin yan na effective talaga sa way ng pagtuturo yan or sa way ng pag-aaral on how you create things for a client when you're going to relate it to the things that they do every day. Ayun. So, for example, you have your file management on an office desktop, word processing as typing, financial analysis on spreadsheets, and of course, your virtual reality, then the user is inside the metaphor. So, as I said, the problems are some tasks do not fit sa loob ng isang metaphor, and of course, the cultural bias. Ang kultura ng Pilipinas sa iba sa kultura ng Amerika. So, kung mag-explain ka sa Pinoy na parang kukunin mo yung isang metaphor mula sa setup ng Pilipinas, edi hindi mo yun basta-basta may explain sa taga-ibang bansa. Okay. So, next is we have what we call direct manipulation. So, in 1982, Schneiderman describes the appeal of graphically based interaction. So, you have the features of this is the visibility of object of interest, and then incremental action and rapid feedback. So, reversibility of all actions, so that users are encouraged to explore without severe penalties. That's why we have what we call the Control Z, which is the undo option. Then we have syntactic correctness of all actions, so that every user action is a legal operation. And of course, you have replacement of complex languages with two actions to manipulate directly with visible objects. So this is really helpful when you're creating things in your computers. Syempre, you have this commands or you have this menu that can act using when you're going to use icons na parang alam mo na home agad yan, profile agad yan, ganito agad yan, ito ginagawa agad yan, without actually struggling so much on how you're going to do it. Kasi nga, di ba, example, just looking at a Microsoft Word interface, like alam mo na agad yung symbol na bold, italic saka underline by just letter. And then you also have the highlights, etc. And you have the paragraphs without actually like thinking too much, if that makes sense. Kasi basically that's common knowledge na siya. So sobrang thankful yon because of creating, WIMP talaga, wind and everything within it. So, napadali niya talaga yung buhay natin. Hindi tayo nag-exage, pero totoo. Okay, so we have the 1984, last 1984, Apple started it, and then we also have this concept of what you see is what you get. Wusugbudu, wusugbudu. Ayan, shucks. Ayan. So, what you see is what you get. So, whatever you type inside a Word document is what you get when you're going to print it. So, yeah. Basically, that's it. Okay, next. So, we also have what we call language versus actions when it comes to UIs. So, actions that always speak louder than words. So, you really need sometimes to read things. For example, like you have the icon find sa yung mga not commonly used icons. Sometimes you really need to integrate words as well. And then, of course, kahit yung ano lang, yung hover, yung pag hinover mo yung isang part is, it will say what, anong gagawin nun. Yan. So, the consequence of what you call direct manipulation, interface replace underlying system. And then you have language paradigm, interface is meditator, interface acts as intelligent agent, and programming by example is both action and language. Okay. So we also have what you call hypertexts. This is actually created last 1945. The start of hypertext concepts started 1945 with the Vannevar Bush and the Mimics. So the key to success in managing explosion of information in mid-1916, Nelson describes hypertext as non-linear browsing structures. So we also have what we call hypermedia and multimedia. Nelson's Sanadu project is still, a dream. You can search it up. This is amazing. Yung Sanadu project. Okay, so hypertext, can I say about hypertext is basically what we experience in the internet today. So if we see a link, we click it, ganyan. So and then we absorb the information that we need. It is considered as a non-linear browsing structure because when parang we're browsing, for example, a web page, and then this specific hyperlink, parang may word na nakakot ng attention natin, and then we're suddenly there na sa kabilang information na naman, and then proceed, and every person has its own different experience when you're browsing the internet, ganyan. So, para ka lang din nasa YouTube, halimbawa, nag-start ka ng maybe watching a vlog of tas mamaya after sometime nanonood ka na ng kumakain na camel, parang ganun, or paano kumatay ng rabbit. Okay. Hindi ako ganun, ha. Ata. Charot. Anyway, okay, so we also have multimodality. A multimodal interactive system is a system that relies on the use of multiple human communication channels. So you can also integrate the sense of touch, sense of anong sense yung ulit? Basta yun, pwedeng voice activated, ganyan. So each different channel for the use is referred to as modality of interaction, and not all systems are multimodal, however. So, ayan. So yeah, this is emphasis on the simultaneous use of multiple channels for input and output. Then we have what we call computer-supported cooperative work. This removes the bias of single user, single computer system, and can no longer neglect the social aspects. Ayan. So, one example of this one is the use of emails. So the main distinctions between CSCW systems and interactive systems designed for a single user is that designers, can no longer neglect the society within which many users operate. So these are built to allow interaction between humans via a computer, so the needs of the many must be represented in one product. This can also be synchronous and asynchronous to be used. So, siguro example dito is, have you tried like the collaborative work when you're having a Google Docs file and then you send it to your classmates maybe if you have your projects, tapos you can actually work with a single doc file and just collaborate in doing that. Ayun. Yeah. Ayan, so I have discussed this kanina. So, a critical mass of users lead to complete transformation in our information system. So, we also have the agent-based interface. So, these are command. Software agents perform actions for the users. So, the major problem is this: to specify the user's task correctly to the user in a suitable language. So, they can also have AI this can also embed AI, and then they will learn from the user, and they also have an embodiment. Okay. Then you also have ubiquitous computing. Okay, so this permeates our physical environment so much that we do not notice the computer any longer. So on a small scale, this is already put into practice, such as phone, watches. However, ayan, so I don't know. It says here that a major breakthrough will still take some time with ubiquitous computing, but I think we are already there. We are already in the point where ubiquitous the parang yung breakthrough ng ubiquitous computing is already there. Because, when you think about it, guys, 'di ba, you can actually, but well, not here in the province, when you go to the city like Manila, ganyan. Pero pero na rin naman kahit paano dito sa province. Like you can go out even though you don't have your cold cash sa mga bulsa nyo, if you just have an e-wallet or an online banking, as long as you have your phone, you can actually go around. Well, hindi sa tricycle ha, hello. Hindi sa tricycle kasi hindi pa pwede yon. Pero like, sige, wala 7-Eleven, like you can buy stuff and pay via GCash or whatever e-wallet you wish. Punta sa mga resto, meron na rin sila nun. SMU also provides its online payment already, online enrollment, online everything. So maybe this pandemic, well, I'm not romanticizing the pandemic at all. Parang itong pandemic na to, parang it brought out all the possibilities that information technology or information systems can go from having from ever thinking online classes are impossible. Well, it's really hard, even for me, even for, I know for you guys, it is really hard. Syempre, iba pa rin talaga yung feeling ng classroom and all, and I really wish to see you na sana talaga next school year. Ayun. So, but the technology, parang the IT industry or talaga the information world, sobra silang naghanap ng ways on how to still connect people even though pandemic hits hard. Ayun. So, I think, yun nga, ito na yung breakthrough na hinihintay ng ubiquitous computing na tinatawag natin. Kasi, come to think of it, parang yung mga Skype, before the pandemic, we only have Skype We only have Skype as a video call means. Like to have a group and it just limits for 25 people. Like what the hell? Tapos, it's sobrang bagal, ganyan. And then, we have Zoom na hindi pa sobrang developed that time. Like, sobrang minadali ng Zoom yung pagde-develop niya na umabot na siya sa kaya na niya mag-host ng web conferencing, na webinars, may mga features na siyang ganun. And even Discord, like Discord is just used, kapag dinownload nyo nga to sa App Store, it will say that Discord for gamers. So, it's just used purely for games before. But then, alam mo yun, pwede naman pala siyang gamitin for this setting, for this setup, and of course, all other apps that are there. So, kayo, if you still think that this is not yet the breakthrough of ubiquitous computing, edi, yeah, ayun. Dami ko nung sinabi. Anyway, pusin na nga natin. Last na nga. Okay, so sensor-based and context-aware interaction. So these are, of course, humans are good at recognizing the context of a situation and reacting appropriately. So you also have physical phenomena like light, temperature, location, and identity, and it will become easier. So how can we go from sense physical measures to interaction that behave as if made aware of our surroundings? Ayan, so yeah, that's about it. Yeah, basically that's it. That is about paradigms. So, I have an activity here to be sent to you later in life. So, it will still be involving yung in-introduce kong software sa inyo kanina ay last time. So, with that, syempre magde-demo tayo for today's video ulit on how to use XD. Ladies and gentlemen, actually super dali lang niya. May struggles, yung mga meron last time na nakita yung demonstration and nakapag-try na magkudit. May mga na-encounter ba kayong problems? Anyone? Hoy. Oo. Anong feature? Wow, English. Sige tuloy mo yan. Hindi, yung mga plugins, shit, hindi naglo-load yung XD ko. What happened? Pag ganun, pwede atang, i-mod ng illegal yung mga plugins. Search ako later kung paano. Kasi, syempre, ano tayo ngayon? Nakawan era. Chares! Joke lang. Eh, pinamumuna na, ano? Yung kapag mag-edit ka nung specific na plug ay parang component. Okay, so web. Ayan, so this is, saan? Ano bang version yan, kapatid? Trinay mo ng, sa view or window, kung ano yung layout niya. Like, wait lang. Plugins, libraries, what else? Layers. Di pa rin talaga. Itong component, sige, wait lang. Try ko dagdag ng bilog. Tapos, bakla, wala naman din siyang Ito ba? Ito? Wala naman siya. Okay. Sige. Wait, paano kaya yan? Saan ka ba kumuha? Charot. Pwede kasi siya sa preferences ata. Hindi shoot. Asan yung ganon? Sige, ito Pucha, wait. Dapat na dito siya sa view though. Like, sige, hanapin ko yan for you. Wow, sana all. Okay, so, balik kasi, there's this amazing thing about XD na, kasi dapat kung hindi XD kasi gagamitin natin, ipapa-hardcode ko kayo ng HTML, which would take a long discussion again. And I have this, meron naman kayo hiwalay na subject na web development when you get to third year. So, it's best talaga na we use like, ganito, mga plugin, mga ready-made, mga convenient apps for you to use when you're developing your user interfaces. So, the next activity kasi that we will have is concerning creating a web page, which is this one. This is a web page, right? Scythia 1920, di ba? Well, i-share ko yun mamaya. And of course, like a basic, you can search about trends, ano yung uso about creating web designs today, ganyan. So, we have what we call prototyping. Ayan. So, halimbawa, gagawa ako ng box sa ganyan. So, sige, lagyan natin siya ng kulay. Ano magandang kulay? Ayan na lang. Para di tayo mabash for today. Okay, so, then, gawa tayo ng isa pang hoy. Tagal, may bakla. Gawa pa tayo ng isang art card. What's this again? 1920. Okay, so gawa tayo ng pangalawang art card. Okay, so balik tayo sa una. Kay rectangle. And then, gawa tayo ng siguro isang circle dito. Ganyan natin siya ng kulay. Okay. So, shoot, paano ba ito magdadala? At kagalit. Hindi ko nga mapindot. Saglit lang. Yan. Wag. Hindi ko mapipindot. Naka-pause na ako. Okay, so we have this prototype. Like, we can actually have like a flow. Ay, i-flow mo be. Parang papunta siya dyan when you're going to click. And then, ano yung trigger niya? Like, tap, siguro like maybe tap na lang. And then we can have like this solve here. So, kapag asan yung play dito? Pag play natin siya, like, kinap natin siya, pupunta siya dito sa next page. So, like, if you're creating a web page, like, you have home about, ano ba iba? Home about sino siya, taga saan siya, parang ganon. You click the home, and then pag pumunta ka, pupunta siya sa kabila dito. Ayun. So, this, parang may experience mo na yung buong experience ng pagkakaroon ng web page without actually coding a web page. Gets ba? Ayan. And then, of course, you can actually export this into an web, an HTML file, and it's already ready. Or like, yan. Yun. Yun lang. You have questions? Ha? At, click mo tong prototype dito sa LEDGI. Tapos like, click mo yung first, tapos i-tap mo lang siya, i-drag mo lang siya papunta dito sa susunod. And then let's create for this one. Halimbawa, gawa ulit ako ng triangle dito. Kunwari lang. Dash. Yan natin siya ng fill. Like a green one. Okay. Then, punta ulit tayo ng prototype. Then, we click this one. And then, we arrow it here. So, ayan. So, you have flow 1. And then, you have flow 2 right here. So, pag, like, we run this one, click natin yan. Pupunta siya dito, right? Then, punta siya, babalik siya, papunta dun sa isa. Ayan. Tapos, pag-click mo si triangle, like, you can actually add things. You can actually create, like, PowerPoint presentations if you're feeling happy, ganyan. Then we also have, may isa bang ganito, those same concepts sila as in, it's Figma. Figma, you have a free na web-based na siya. You can actually have it here already. But, like the Figma Pro, of course, everything free has its own pro. Yun na yung may bayad na siya. So, this is the SMU website that I've created before. Yay! Eto, ganito siya ginawa. Yan siya mangyayari. So, pag in-open nyo yung hindi sa pagbabayabang, hindi nag-load shit. Diba? Hindi mo kaya. Gumawa na ito. Ito siya, Diba? Sheesh! Pero experience-wise, mas madaling gumawa sa XP. I was just parang, ito Figma kasi nun. Bakit nga ba Figma ginamit ko nun? Basta ganun. Wala pa akong laptop na maganda nun. So, XD won't work. Kaya ako nag-Figma. Ayan. But still, same shit. Same thing. Nasa ito na siya ngayon. Buhay na siya. Ayan. Hindi mo kaya. Anyway, so, 5 minutes. Questions? Stop ko na tong recording. Hindi nag-record.